Last weekend was the big Berkshire Hathaway gathering in Omaha, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Omaha. And the beloved Warren Buffett, 95?
94.
94. So he is going to retire. And so this opened up just a treasure trove of remembrances of him and many of his really, really famous phrases. And we are going to go through some of them because this is just pure wisdom, I believe.
Sure.
Within the economist world, he's a treasure, isn't he?
Oh, he is. He has all sorts of great one-liners, and that's always wonderful, right? Is the extent to which you can have very succinctly share a lot of wisdom, and you can kind of unpack those. So he's got tons of phrases, and let's also appreciate just the wealth that he has created for so many people over the years. You know, starting back from 1964 to like the end of 2024, the returns, if you had bought into Berkshire Hathaway in 1964, $1 grew to more than $5.5 million. I mean, that's impressive.
Let's go find that time machine.
That's right. Yeah.
Any favorites? Any of his colloquialisms?
You know, I think that one of my favorites is just because it's so true is be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful, right? And if you think about it, it's so easy to get caught up in the emotions when you're watching television and you see the stock market going down, and that makes us fearful. But he's always pointed out, well, at those moments, that's when it's to start thinking about, are there opportunities, right? Not to say that you have to buy every proverbial dip in the market, but when there's a lot of fear, that's when you actually want to start getting greedy.
Easy to say, though.
Yes, that's just it. So, and that's what makes it, I think, so wise, and why it can work is it's hard to do. If it was easy to do, it wouldn't work.
Anything else? And any of the other that you like?
So there are two other ones that I really like, almost because they kind of contradict each other, at least on their face. One is where he talks about, you know, rule number 1 is never lose money, and rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. But the problem is, if you actually never want to lose money, that means being too conservative, right? And I think that's one of the problems with that idea is that if you actually apply it literally as opposed to thinking about it figuratively, the idea there is don't put yourself in a situation where you're almost guaranteed to lose money, right? Investing entails taking on risk. If you want to have certainty, go to church. If you want certainty of your principal as far as the amount of money that you have, you can put it in a bank or something like that, but that's not really the road to accumulating or growing wealth. And so another one of his ideas is always remember that the most important thing to do is that if you find yourself in a hole is to stop digging. And I think that's a really important one is because you don't want to throw good money after bad money. So if you have an investment, and one of the things that we always ask our portfolio managers that we work with and we think about it for ourselves is what's called your sell discipline, right? When do you take the money off the table, recognize the gains, and when do you recognize that the market maybe has moved against you, and so when is it that you should just cut bait and bail?
Again, let's get the time machine because I need to go back to when I was 18 and deliver that advice.
That's right.
Stop digging. What about this one? The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. It kind of ties into the one about being fearful and greedy.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And really, I think that is why he was so successful, is because of his patience. Now, maybe that was part of his personality, but also it's part of the business model that he had. Remember, Berkshire Hathaway is a conglomerate. So it's an insurance company. It also has other operating businesses where it allowed him to be patient to ride through market dislocations. In fact, there's an academic study that was done back in 2013 trying to ask, was he really successful just because he picked good stocks? And what they found was that yes, that was part of it, but the fact that he was able to be patient, to recognize that when you take that longer term view, that's really how it is that you can get the wealth. It's not necessarily trying to time the market, making these short term bets. You know, some of his biggest gains were from like buying Apple. I remember he really thanked Tim Cook for the amount of wealth that Apple created because Berkshire Hathaway was a big investor in them, but it's because they bought them back in the 80s. Right. And then held on to them for 40, 50 years. And that's really when he was asked about what's his ideal investment horizon. He said, infinity. Right. Think about when you're going to buy it, you're going to try to hold it forever.